Hello everyone, welcome back to the final day of our 16-day-long California road trip. Today we're exploring the remote Pinnacles National Park, which doubles as the state's least visited national park. With an annual attendance of approximately 210,000 people, Pinnacles National Park is relatively unknown in the grand scheme of things. But in our last episode of the series, I'll be showing you the 3 trails we experienced, all of which offer a shocking variety of things to see. Driving to Pinnacles National Park is actually quite pretty, as you have these perfect rolling gold hills surrounding the roads. Let me note that we were driving to the eastern side of the park, as it's split into halves and are not connected by road. The side we visited are where most of the park's best attractions are, but the other side is best if you're limited on time or only interested in doing one thing. Seemingly out of nowhere, national park signs start to pop up, even though I failed to understand how giant pinnacles could be anywhere around here. For those of you less informed, a pinnacle is some sort of rock spire that shoots out of the ground. In this case, the pinnacles are eroded leftovers of an extinct volcano and are made up almost entirely of quartz and feldspar. The best examples were seen on our first hike of the day, the old Pinnacles trail to Balconies Cave and cliffs. The latter 2 things that we hiked this trail for can be easily accessed via the west side of the park, but I'm glad we got to experience the longer alternative as the hike was a blast. We noticed so much fauna in such a short amount of time, likely because there's so few people visiting this park and on the trail. First, we saw all sorts of birds with varying colors. A lot of these were fast, so I failed to capture them on video. There were also these incredible desert-like, almost cactus-like plants with flower budding at the top. Then the best is we saw a deer with antlers and its skin appeared unusually smooth. Next were lizards, which we saw everywhere around this park, and then the biggest surprise, a wild turkey. I couldn't go more than 15 seconds without noticing something new here. Not to mention, we got to see some of our first pinnacles. They weren't huge, but definitely still pretty cool. A mile later, there were 2 more wild turkey right alongside the trail, and seriously, these things are so cool. Eventually, when the trees opened up, we saw these absolutely massive pinnacles and rock formations with a darker shade to them. The key feature of this hike would be situated right under the rocks, which in question is a cave. Pinnacles National Park is known for its 2 signature caves, the Balconies Cave, which we were about to experience, and the Gulch Cave, which is closed in the summer due to bat rehabilitation. The Balconies Cave was such a unique aspect to this hike, but make sure you bring a flashlight or at least your phone flashlight so that you can see where you're going. At some points, it's completely dark and you'd be screwed if you didn't bring anything. I would recommend deactivating your flashlight when you get to the dark sections, as it's fascinating to see what sheer nothingness looks like. This is how the caves always are, which is something crazy to think about. Once you exit the cave, the trail wraps around to the Balconies cliff section, first by taking you through a narrow section covered by boulders. This means that you have to duck very low to continue. The National Park System had a field day when they made these trails. The Balconies cliffs are massive, and the views you'll get of the area's hills are really cool too. The old Pinnacles trail really had it all and ultimately was actually one of my favorite hikes of the trip. If you can only do one thing at Pinnacles National Park, excluding the Gulch Cave, this is my top recommendation. Now, even though the Gulch Cave was closed, you could still walk the Moses Spring Trail to the Gulch Reservoir. I would have never imagined this place to have a reservoir. The rock formations on this trail have a brighter shade to them, almost like a brownish orange. This short hike had some cool elements like a narrow tunnel, ferns which I was stunned to see in a dry climate, and some short cave sections as the previous hike had. You'll know you're approaching the reservoir when you see this long and narrow staircase carved into the ground, but your efforts will be rewarded with a sight you'd likely never expect to see here. The backdrop of the reservoir is a pinnacle called the Monolith, but the real showstopper for me were the fauna. Not just the squirrels, which were beautiful as well, but the dark red and blue dragonflies. My phone camera can only pick them up so well, but in person they were so evident. The trail then concludes with some high elevation views of the hills and pinnacles before taking you back to the lot. This was another diverse trail that I'd certainly recommend, especially if the cave is open. At this point, we were pretty beat up, so we took a long rest and hung out in the air-conditioned visitor center for a while. It wasn't until 5 p.m. we decided to do our last hike, the Condor Gulch Trail. This was 2 miles out and back for us, to a small overlook whose purpose is to provide the opportunity for bird watching. I've been told to come here in the evening for our best shot at seeing the California condor. 86 of the 504 California condor living in the wild reside within Pinnacles National Park, which has arguably become the thing the park is most well known for. California condor are often mistaken for turkey vultures, which also live here in large numbers. However, a kind lady with binoculars let us know that there were a couple in the sky this evening and that you could not only identify them by their large wingspan of 9.5 feet, but the white underneath their said wings. The phone camera couldn't really pick this up, but you could briefly tell with a close eye that birds like this one that you're seeing on screen here were California condor. If that isn't the best way to wrap up a visit to Pinnacles National Park, I don't know what is. Sure, this is my second least favorite national park in California, disappointed, but that's just because of the competition. Pinnacles National Park was still a pleasant surprise with excellent hiking, stunning wildlife, and cool rock formations. Since this is the last episode of the series, let me just say this was a trip of a lifetime. Road trip in California was one of the most incredible experiences of my life, especially considering I grew up in San Diego and never had the chance to see any of it. Now I have a completely different outlook on the state and can say with full confidence that it's by far the most naturally diverse in the country. From dry deserts to the mountains to the wet forests, I'm proud to live in such an incredibly beautiful state. With that being said, thank you all so much for sticking with me, and I'll see you very soon. Bye guys.